story you are about to see is true.
Do movies and shows have a duty to tell the truth? Hi, my name is Tim, I write for television, and these are some of my thoughts. Here's a question. What do you think happens when you get arrested? Do you imagine you get your rights read to you? One phone call, maybe a public defender comes to see you? Perhaps you find yourself on trial soon after and are asked for your plea. I bet that you have a pretty good understanding of all the things that happen after an arrest. Why is that? If I were to guess, it's not from experience. Statistically, the odds that you've been arrested are low. And if you have, it's very unlikely that you've been on trial. And yet, you believe you know how the justice system works. We all do. Because we've seen it on television. Cop shows are legion. There are more murders in the TV version of New York than in the actual city. And cop shows have been operating within the same storytelling framework for more than 60 years. We know how they work. There's a murder, cop shows up, talks to witnesses, he gathers evidence, he watches CCTV, he finds fingerprints, he finds the suspect is tried, found guilty, goes to jail, week in, week out, rinse, repeat. And sure, we know that it's TV and it's not real and no cop is that good looking, but the thing is, there's just so much of it. And every cop show, from the silliest comedy to the grittiest prestige drama, uses the same tropes. So those tropes must get something right? Right? Imagine my surprise when I discovered that more than half of murders in the United States never get solved. I think this fact would surprise most people, because most people think that with all the security cameras and DNA evidence and phone tracking, surely only the most brilliant killers get away with it. The one phone call thing, that's a myth. These inaccuracies, taken one at a time, don't amount to much. But taken as a whole, they matter. How can the public be expected to vote on laws concerning the justice system when the majority of us only know about the justice system as presented by Dick Wolf? In 2012, Zero Dark 30 hit theaters. The movie told the true story of the decade-long hunt for Osama bin Laden. It was praised for its realism, but the movie contains several torture scenes, and it portrays those scenes as being horrible and yet necessary for finding Osama bin Laden. But the Senate report that came out a few years later detailed how torture never yielded any useful intel in finding Osama bin Laden. It was an ineffective tactic. When the audience hears that this is a true story, and then they see torture being a useful tool, they assume that that's true. I mean, the rest of the story is very accurate, so why wouldn't that one piece be? Well, it's because that one piece is propaganda that the CIA has asked the filmmakers to put in the movie to justify their treatment of prisoners. Gladiator II features the co-emperors Caracalla and Geta as they come into conflict with the heir of Marcus Aurelius. His name is Lucius. He's not a real person, but that's not really my problem. My problem is that in this film, Caracalla and Geta are portrayed as skinny, pale, effeminate, mewling little weaklings, while the reality is the exact opposite. Caracalla was an army general who wore his armor and sword at all time. He was bearded and imposing and deadly serious. He spent most of his life on campaign, living hard and killing his enemies. If anything, the real Caracalla looked more like Lucius. So why does it matter that we get this little twink instead? Because there is a pernicious and incorrect theory that Rome fell because of cultural decay, that the ruling class lost their honor and resolve and dignity and descended into debauchery, and that's what led to the collapse. The people making these arguments are usually trying to make a point about the current state of Western civilization, how we're partying too much and we're too gay, and that's why the economy is failing. Just look at what happened to Rome. But that's not what happened to Rome. It's a lie. And it's a lie that Americans are very eager to believe because we keep seeing this stereotype of the effete, debaucherous Roman elite. I think it's a shame that we don't expect truthfulness from our media. If anything, it seems like filmmakers these days loathe the truth. We ridicule people who criticize movie inaccuracies as being pedantic. But is it really so much to ask that a movie that says it's telling you the truth tells you the truth? One of the main arguments I hear again and again about this subject is that sometimes a movie needs to bend the truth a little for the sake of entertainment. I mean, sure, The Social Network is an entirely dishonest movie about Mark Zuckerberg, but it's an entertaining film, so what's the harm? This argument assumes something that isn't true, that if you make a movie accurate, it makes it less entertaining. And I know it isn't true because I watched Warfare and The Pitt. Warfare tells the true story of a Navy SEAL team that comes under fire while hunkered down in a house in Ramadi. It is co-written and co-directed by one of the soldiers who experienced the events. The movie is told in real time. The events are told exactly as the director remembers them. The whole point of the movie is to tell the truth without embellishment. It's tense, it's nerve-wracking, it's one of my favorite movies of the year. And what makes Warfare so successful is that by eliminating every movie convention that is not accurate, it makes the movie feel new and fresh. For example, there's no scene in the beginning where one guy tells another guy about his wife and kids back home. We don't get a scene where a soldier asks the sergeant, "Hey Sarge, what's our mission?" Because in real life, you would already know your mission before you got there. And also, the mission doesn't matter. The movie isn't about winning the war. The movie is about experiencing the war. You root for these soldiers not because you want them to win against the enemy. You root for them because you want them to live, because they are human. By throwing out all these conventions for the sake of accuracy, the movie demonstrates how useless those conventions really are. I hear the argument that filmmakers need to take liberties with the truth to make the real story more entertaining. But I think all these artistic liberties are making the real story more boring. On a similar note, The Pitt premiered this year, and it took the same approach as Warfare with equally impressive results. Unlike Warfare, The Pitt is not telling a true story. It's a made-up story about doctors and nurses on a single shift in a Pittsburgh hospital. But like Warfare, it's told in real time, and it is slavishly accurate. Once again, the accuracy makes the stories more effective, because we are deprived of some of the normal genre tropes of a medical show, and instead we get something that feels very unexpected and lively. I'll give you one example. In one of the show's interconnected plot lines, an elderly man comes into the hospital with pneumonia. His adult children come by and they debate what sort of interventions they should use on their father. They eventually realize that there's nothing they can do to save him. He's old and he's dying, and they have to let him go. They say their goodbyes, and he dies. There's no twist, no sudden reversal. It's a very human story. In any other medical show, this would be a really hard story to tell. It would get a B plot or maybe a C plot, which means it would get a maximum of 10 to 15 minutes of screen time to try to tell the whole story, and that's just not enough. But The Pitt is told in real time, and anyone who's spent time in a hospital knows that you're usually there for a while. So this family's in the hospital for 4 episodes. And what that leads to is a remarkable depth of storytelling, as this old man's children navigate the complex and ultimately beautiful experience of letting go. We live in the age of rampant misinformation, and I've heard so much complaints about bad reporting, the saturation of propaganda, and the endless tidal wave of scams. And yet, we don't want to hold our movies and TV shows to the same standard we hold everything else. We defend inaccurate movies because they're just here to entertain, like they're not part of the problem. But the thing is, movies and TV shows do inform how we see the world. They inform what we think is true about the world. And if they are consistently portraying something false, then we start to believe, well, that must be true. And look, I'll admit it, I really enjoy some movies that I know are not telling a true story. The Social Network, for example. I'm not saying we should throw all this art in the fire, but I think a story's inaccuracies should be factored into how we rate it. In the same way we criticize a movie's writing, cinematography, or acting, we should also criticize its inaccuracy, especially if that movie claims to be telling a true story. So the next time you're watching a movie or TV show that claims to be telling a true story, but definitely isn't, I want you to remember, you're being lied to. And the lies aren't there for entertainment's sake. The lies are there to convey a message that is false. They are trying to trick you. I want you to see that this is really no different than this. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.